Okay.
1, 2.
We're ready.
All right.
I feel like I can trust anybody.
Get the frames. What's going on, guys? Hey, welcome back. Another episode of the L3 Perspective, where we have conversation around life, love, and leadership. The conversation today, I'm excited to have it. We're going to talk beyond numbers, right? As business owners, as entrepreneurs, as leaders. We have a very special guest that's tuned in from Florida, Mr. Jason Becker. But before we go into the conversation today, I'm going to toss it over to Cam, and then we'll dive into the conversation.
Hey, so as you guys already know, this episode is sponsored by L3 Media as well as Elevare Global. L3 Media is your one-stop shop for anything storytelling, media, content creation, and Elevare Global is your main stop for anything business, optimization, or leadership. So make sure you check us out. I was trying to come up with like something in the hallway to say, like from sanitation to salvation to podcast signals.
I love it.
Glenn's usually the wordsmith, but I was like, I gotta show up on this one.
I love it. And we got a special guest from Florida. We have to show up.
That's right.
With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we want to welcome Jason Becker, who is an entrepreneur, speaker, podcaster, and media creator. Jason, welcome to the L3 Perspective. How you doing?
From afar.
Oh, I'm doing great, man. Hey, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it, and it's an honor to be on your show. It's an honor to get to share my story, and that was great. Sanitation to salvation and a podcaster. I love that. That's really good. Yeah, my story has a trajectory that's weird and but interesting and kind of a jack of all trades. I mean, you get into stuff and you start doing it, and I've been fortunate to have an arc that allowed me to go through different types of fields, and I think it helps give me some well-roundedness, maybe. I don't know if that's a word.
I think that's what makes us who we are, right? Like just life experiences and helping us to shape the better version of ourselves, and that's what it's about, man.
Yeah. So you told me, Jason, when we talked that you like where you got started was at 18, and you were given this opportunity. Could you kind of tell our listeners about like what was that initial opportunity that you got given, and kind of how did that go from like you said, one truck to now one of the largest companies in the Southeast?
Yeah, actually, it was really kind of incredible. The crazy part of it, though, is it never really started out that way. I was 17 years old, and my wife, which she's just a girl in high school, 15 years old, and I happened to be in a car line to pick up my brother from middle school, and she was in a car line to pick up her brother in middle school, and the way these car lines worked, that our cars were kind of side by side, pointed, to wrap around. And I was a driver. She was a learner's permit at 15. So she was in her mother's white STS Cadillac. And I can remember it today. And I had a buddy with me, shout out my friend. He was he actually went into Rangers after high school, but in the Army. But Nathan Pullen. And I said, Nathan, I said, who's that girl over there? And he said, that's Danielle Colomb. I said, man, how do you know her? He said, I run cross country.
I want to know her.
Yeah, so I want to know her. He said, I run cross country with her. I said, well, I'm practicing. I'm getting ready for soccer season and scouts and all this stuff. So I went to the cross country coach, and Coach Lynn, remember his name to this day. He said, Coach Lynn, can I just practice running with y'all? And he said, sure. So we ran, and I ran until I caught up with her group, and then I told the guys, I said, y'all, I'm out of shape. I'm going to run with these girls. And so I ran with her and got a date. And a few days later, Coach Lynn said, I'm on to you. You have to quit. You're slowing my best girl runner down. And so I had to quit. But that's really how it got started. And we just dated, and her parents owned a sanitation company. In 1987 or 89, they bought the company, had one truck, 500 customers. It's called CLM Sanitation. So there was a husband and wife at the time was Claudine and Larry, and their son Mike. So CLM Sanitation. and they could not handle it. One truck, 500 customers, they could not handle it, and they wanted to get out of it. My father-in-law had been in transportation. He had worked his way up into Jones Truck Lines. I think he was kind of over an area of the, one of these big terminals in Atlanta, over a trucking terminal.
Yeah.
That company was bought out. They kind of liquidated, they buy the routes, liquidate what they need. They don't need certain people. You've got synergies of systems when that happens. And so he lost his job. But he knew he didn't want to work for anyone else. He really wanted to be an entrepreneur. He wanted to do something else. He didn't want to go back in, lots of opportunities to go into other trucking companies, but he did not want to do that. So he took out, I think he borrowed 20. He went to his mom and dad at the time and said, I want to own I want to buy this sanitation truck company. He saw it in the newspaper. Of all places, he picked up a newspaper and found an article, for sale sanitation company. And he said, I want to buy it. It's like $20,000, $25,000. His parents told him, that's crazy. Why would you want to own anything? Go work at a GE, go back into it, get a pension, do all these things. It's absolutely insane that you would want to own your own company. To which he still knew that was the way to go. Fortunately, his in-laws were also entrepreneurs. When I go back, this family lineage here, my wife's mother's parents, so his mother-in-law and father-in-law had started. He had I think he dropped out of high school in like 10th grade. Forged some documents to go in the Navy early. Got out of the Navy right back in World War II when you could kind of do this stuff. And then he came back and started clearing land. He got him a tractor and started clearing land around Orlando, lucked up into clearing like most of Disney World.
What?
When Disney World was going on.
Wow.
When he started
crazy.
seeing all of this happen, isn't it crazy? When he started seeing all this happen, he was like, I'm all in on this. So he got a C&D landfill. So he built a C&D landfill, and everybody that was clearing anything in Central Florida brought it to his landfills. And so he did all that and then sold those landfills to Waste Management. So my father-in-law, when he went to his father-in-law and said, hey, I've got this idea about trash, he was like, yeah, here's $25,000. Here you go.
Yeah.
And my father-in-law paid him back with interest on that loan. And so in high school, her parents had just started to that's what I love about entrepreneurship. And you guys will appreciate this. Everybody's an overnight success in today's world.
I mean, bro.
But now think about 1989 to when I come on the scene in like 1994. He's just now starting to we've got a little bit of expendable income. They bought a newer home. They had bought this Cadillac STS that I saw driving around. But you're talking I mean, what, 6 years, I guess 5 years later, 6 years into this thing, where he's starting to just saying, okay, I think I can, and he still drove his truck. He bought his wife the new car,
Yeah.
And so it was that kind of thing that was like slow and steady. And so I was fortunate enough through college, I would take my breaks. Because I love my parents to death, but they are workers, and it was like I got to see this, and they're good. They're dedicated. My dad taught me time management. My mother taught me so many other things. It's incredible work ethics, but they worked for people.
For sure.
Right.
And so I got to see this dichotomy of like my parents and then her parents,
Right.
who are risk takers and calculated and planning and staging it out. And so that was, certainly I was in love with their daughter, but I also saw this different side of things, right? And so, which was just unique to me. And my wife thought differently. I mean, I was a senior in high school. She was a sophomore. I was literally ready to play the field my senior year. I had told myself I wasn't getting locked down.
Yeah.
She was just going to be one Friday night date.
I'm going to do my thing.
And she was so different. Yeah, she was so different that I had to jump. I had to go and do it. And so, but I was fortunate enough to have that opportunity. And when I would come home from school, I wanted to be with her and be with my family, but I could not work. And so her dad would let me ride on the back of a garbage truck in the winters and the summers. And so I toted garbage all through college, and it helped me pay really for college. And then that gave me, I guess, as he saw me graduate and then go on to doing other things and working inside, I was actually working in a concrete company. I was moving up pretty fast there. And he just, right before we got married, he said, "Hey, I want to retire myself."
Yeah.
And I want to kick back now. You know, we're now fast forward, we're in like 1999-ish,
Yeah.
2000 era, you know, and I think it's probably 2000 because we got married in February 2001. So probably in 2000, he says, "Hey, I want to retire myself and really slow down. So I want to bring you on." And man, I mean, you know, 23, 24 years old, having the chance to learn from, you know, really learn from who I idolized as an entrepreneur was an amazing opportunity. So I left that company in a heartbeat and jumped to go be his right-hand guy and eventually take that company over.
Yeah. You bring up a good point, and I think I talked to somebody about this the other day, was as far as like, but I was talking because we have some friends, right? And some of our friends, they're in positions at the places they're at, but every once in a while, I get reminded of that they are still employees. And, you know, and as me specifically, as I'm exiting the military, like my wife always tells me, like, don't tell people this, because then, you know, I don't want to work for anybody. I'm like, I don't want to work for anybody. I don't want to answer anybody. I had to listen to the government for 20 years. I want to go where I want to go, when I want to go, how I want to go. But I know that like that mindset in particular is honestly just too frightening for most.
There's a cost
to execute, right? And so my question, like for you, is, you know, like what do you think are some of the main things that tip people to one side or the other?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think risk assessment is something that young entrepreneurs need. If you're wanting to be an entrepreneur, you've got to assess how much risk you're willing to take. Yeah. I mean, there's calculated risk. I mean, I know people that are like, you know, you think about like disruptors, right? You've got like the Elon Musks of the world, and you've got different people like that. The problem with disruptors is it is super close to destruction too.
That's a very good point.
So disruptors can be great, but they're unicorns. They really are unicorns. I mean, when they hit it right, you see the pop, like the Elons and some of these guys that turn on. And there are others out there. I'm using him because he's the guy coming to my head right now and all over the news. And he's certainly probably one of the most famous ones that we know of. But Truett Cathy would be a disruptor, right? He disrupted the entire Chick-fil-A, disrupted the entire fast food industry when he was coming along and creating the original Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich, you know? Yeah. But, you know, you got Coca-Cola would be considered kind of a disruptor back in the day. And you look at that family there. And so you've got disruptors for sure, but they're super close to destruction because one bad turn, our investment venture capital is littered with disruptors that went bad.
For sure.
I mean, you know, and you never get your money back and all that. So you have to, a true entrepreneur is a risk taker, but is a calculated risk taker. Yeah. You know, and is figuring, you know, most of the time when I go into something, I'm thinking, okay, I want to be 5 steps ahead, and how am I going to get my money back and then some, right? Yeah. And so that calculated risk and that setting goals and setting expectations and then executing it, that's really what you've got to figure out if you want to. That's the difference, because you know, you've got a lot of people that are hard. I mean, look, I know incredible people that are even executives in kind of the C-suite areas that just don't. Their risk was, you know, here. And when you want to go to the entrepreneur, it's one level up. I mean, if you want everything, you've got to give everything. And so if you're willing to hold back, then that's probably the difference. If you're holding anything back, that's probably the difference of not going out on your own.
Yeah, you definitely bring up a valid point with that. One of the things I want to kind of go backwards to when you were sharing the story about your wife. First of all, smart man.
Smart man. Smart man.
Lockdown early, baby.
Hey, get him, got him.
Very good.
25 years. 25
Oh,
years
man.
in February.
Yeah,
So,
Congrats.
congratulations. And that's where I wanted to go
Thanks,
back
man.
to, because I thought I heard you mention, 2001 is when you guys got married.
Yeah.
And so as an entrepreneur, as a leader, there are some people who aspire to be married, and or our divorce rate is like through the roof nowadays. And so for you and your wife to be together that long, what are some things that you could pass on to folks that are aspiring to have a marriage, a long marriage at that? What are some things that you could that has helped you in your journey?
Glenn, that is a really, really great question, because you really do give up so much when you're an entrepreneur. I'm so fortunate, though, that my wife and I work together, right? So she got a law degree, and her dad, shortly after I came on, talked her into retiring her mother, and she became the CFO of our company. And so we really were, and along with incredible people that worked with us and for us, we're able to build a great company and exit. But then every venture we've done after that, we've been side by side in. And so in fact, I tell everybody, because it's funny, as the guy, everybody meets with me and they want to press, and you get into negotiations and they want to press this issue or press that issue or try on this, or if you're trying to exit something, or if I'm negotiating to buy or whatever it is. It's usually funny, because then at some point they're like, well, we need to talk with your wife. Like, who else can we talk with? If they're not getting the yes that they want from me. And I always tell them, I said, brother, I'm the hug. She's the hammer.
Yeah.
You really don't want to talk with her.
Oh, I like that. I'm the hug. She's the hammer.
Yeah.
That's my wife and I are kind of I'm pretty hard, but like I tell people all the time is like, don't get it twisted, man. My wife, she does numbers, man. She's a bean counter.
Hey, strong men usually have an even stronger woman behind
100%.
them. And that's exactly right. My wife is, the one thing I would tell a young person today that's sitting on this track of entrepreneurship, or even if you're middle-aged or in your 30s, I don't even know what middle-aged is anymore. I'm 48 and I'm trying to figure it out. But if I were to step back in time and we did this probably 10 years into our marriage, is I would dive into counseling sooner than later. That's the number one thing. I would get involved in I think it's important to get involved in your local church. We did that early on. It helped a lot. Sometimes we go to church just for childcare. You know what I mean? You show up on Sunday mornings. I teach Sunday school, or I go to 2 services just to have that childcare. So it's I think you've got to use all of those tools that you can. But counseling, in fact, I've had the great fortune of marrying some couples, over the years. And it's the one thing I tell every couple that gets married. I said, that I marry, is that set a date 6 months out, maybe something like that. Set a date for a couple's counseling, because most people, they don't seek counseling until they're at rock bottom. And what happens is the husband walks in or the wife walks in and they go, we need counseling. The other one immediately gets defensive.
Right.
Why do we need counseling? What's going on? You don't think I'm this or whatever. You get all of these, you get all twisted, right? But if you have a date set 6 months in advance, hey, y'all might be in great terms. Things might be honky dory, but you've got a date set and it's nobody's upset with you. You may be at each other's throats, but it's set already. And you just go to the appointment and you talk through it. And if you get in that regular kind of, call like maintenance counseling, I think that helps, because communication it's weird how quick it can go, even when you work together. When you work together, what ends up happening is you're only communicating about work. And that's not really that's not really a personal relationship, No,
I definitely appreciate that. That was some great advice. I think, oftentimes I would joke, or, oftentimes joke with my kids and, just telling, hey, so my wife and I, we've been married for 12 years now. And,
good.
This is coming from, not having an example. Right. And so my oldest is 21. I have a 12-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 3-year-old. And so, oftentimes we're talking about mom and I are striving for minimum 50. Like, that's our number, 50 minimum. Like
That's
you know,
awesome.
that's just our floor. And so, but
Yeah.
I asked that because again, not being around a lot of men who have, you know, have those digit numbers, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Whenever I get that opportunity, I try to ask a leader, man, husband, about
Yeah.
what principles have helped you to stay. Because one of the focuses that, you know, Cam and I, not only in our business but in our marriages, we're wanting to continuously sharpen ourselves so that we can give more to our wives.
For sure. So as you guys exited, you know, the sanitation company, because you guys sold it, correct?
We did.
Um,
We did.
how did you, like, as a, you know, because that was obviously a very fundamental part of where you guys were at as a family, you know, employment wise, all that. What decisions, or like, how did you guys make the decision not only to shift out of that business, but to the next decision that you made as far as where you were going to focus your energy? Because you've done a lot of stuff. I mean,
No, for sure, Cam. No, that's a good question too. You know, I can remember that I think my father-in-law probably had a little bit of a feeling, because I can remember a Christmas probably in 2007, maybe 2000. Yeah, maybe 2008, and we had and you got to remember this time frame. Everything in the world had crashed. It felt like the housing market had crashed, right? And homes that were worth, let's say, 160,000 were now all of a sudden worth, you know, I mean, 30, 40,000.
Right? It's crazy because these are 160, like that's a lot there, but like here it was like 400,000 that went to 200.
Yeah. Right. You probably did. I mean, in our area, we were in Atlanta and Metro Atlanta. I mean, you could find kind of like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,200 square foot home in around the 160,000 mark or so. But you started seeing that all of a sudden worth 40, 80, you know, 50, $60,000. And we were seeing this happening. And I think my father-in-law had a realization that we had grown quite large. And, you know, we had gotten to the point where we were the largest, you know, residential hauler. In other words, we had more residential garbage customers, meaning we're coming to your home once a week, picking up the garbage directly, usually in a 95-gallon can, which most of America has these days. But we had more residential haulers in this entire state of Georgia, and we were one of the largest family-owned and operated sanitation companies in the Southeast at the time.
Yeah.
And so we felt like if we put some feelers out, it might be interesting. Side note, we had just been featured in the Waste Age magazine, which was the premier waste magazine for sanitation haulers, right?
Bowling.
And we featured, we had like a 3-page spread on it or whatever, where what had happened is we had this is crazy. You're talking 2007, 2008. We were some of the first on the East Coast to automate sanitation, you know, the one-armed bandit kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so we had some different technology to that. So, which really helped. It was hard to do, but, you know, getting rid of the labor on the back, we could pay our drivers a little bit more. It's safer environment, the air conditioned, clean. It's like they're playing a Game Boy, you know, a joystick and grabbing trash and throwing it. And so that featured us, which got us a lot of notoriety and pressed out into the world. People that may not have heard of us started hearing about us. And so I think we just felt this happening. And so all of a sudden we just started getting calls. And my father-in-law said, hey, we were talking over Christmas. I remember having this. If we got the right number, this may be the right time to where you could buy property in this country so inexpensive. This may be a generational time right now, like that we'll never see again, to have cash on hand. And so we had these conversations, and sure enough, he was living where I live now. So he was down here on the beach. I was in Atlanta running the business with my wife, and I called him up and I said, Dave, I just got this offer that these guys gave me. And I told him what it was. And he said, Jason, I think the hungry pig gets fed, the greedy pig gets slaughtered. It's time for us to go. And so we we negotiated that, and I mean, and it took us from the beginning of 2009. It took us till October of 2009 to close that deal. So it was about 10 months. We couldn't close it fast enough. And so as soon as we closed that deal, in fact, I mean, entrepreneurs, if you exit out of something, you need to be prepared to let it go, because I'm telling you, the wire hit at 3 p.m. and they had locksmiths in the office at 3 p.m. and I was locked out of email and locked out the door at 3 p.m. Wow. So it was over.
Hey, they
was ready to go.
They made it ready for you. They were like, "Hey, man."
That's right. Hey, I didn't care. It was, but what's tough is that as an entrepreneur, you've got to get ready in that mindset, because you spend all your time. So many people tell me, this is my baby.
Yeah.
This is my baby. And that's how you need it. That's how you need to treat it.
Yeah.
It's your baby. Love it, nurture it, grow it, do all that. But this is the one baby you are designing to give away. You are designing. You want to make it so attractive that somebody really, 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 really wants it, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we did. And so when we got out, it was an easy move to pivot to residential homes. Mm-hmm. And so we started, my wife and I would scout the area and find homes that we liked. We'd show up to the courthouse steps, and I'd have a list of, there'd be 40, 50 foreclosures, the first Tuesday or whatever it was of the month in this county, Wednesday in this county, whatever it is. And we'd have, out of the 40, we'd identify about 10 that we really, really liked, and so we'd go up to the courthouse steps. When I first got there, you go up and people are bidding against each other. There'd be, 5, 6, 7 other investors, and you'd start seeing this guy go, well, I'm bid $50,001. And somebody go, well, I'll do 55 and 60. And next thing you know, they'd be up to $70,000 on this one house, and everybody's getting one, but the bank's still winning. And so as an entrepreneur, it took me about 2 months of this that I set everybody down early before the bank got there at the steps. And literally, they go to the front of the courthouse on the steps. And so we all got together, and I said, guys, I'm going to go ahead and show you my list. And I showed them my 10 houses I wanted. And I said, I guarantee you that you all have these same 10 houses on your list. And they did. I said, but what if you all pick which one you want, and then just give me one of these 10? I don't even care which one it is.
Yeah.
And I'll lay off yours, you lay off yours, how many do you want this month? I just want one. Yep. Every month I just want one. That's all I want to do. I'm not even fighting with you. I want one. It's just me and my wife. We'll turn them and we turn them. And so they all of a sudden they were like, wow, we can do this? And I said, yes, just lay off mine, I'll lay off yours. And so we got up there, right? We got up there, and so then it was, I'm $50,001.
Yeah.
Sold. I'm $40,001. Sold.
Go.
And so we stopped overpaying for these houses. And so my wife and we did that and bought a ton of homes, rehabbed them. I flipped a few, but ultimately we kept most of those homes and still have them renting to this day. And, they've gone from being worth 40 to some of these worth, 250, 300, 400 and plus $1,000, now. And so I continue to hold. The majority of them I actually still hold. But then I entered into the development world in the kind of apartment complexes, really more townhomes style in Athens, Georgia, at the University of Georgia. I entered into that and still own the complex there in Athens. So go Dogs. And which just had a great game against Tennessee, right? I mean, they pulled that sucker out. But did one, and coincidentally, I did a development in Tennessee. I charged those guys a lot more in rent up there, but I sold that one and exited out of that property. But yeah, so I got it really heavy into the real estate side, and through that venture, then ventured into venture capital. Did some stuff with different companies, from REITs to hotel groups that we'd go and invest with, and they'd build a condo or a hotel, and we'd exit out of those things. And so a lot of that sort of I really love finding great operators that need a little bit of capital to fund what they're doing, and then hopefully they'll send my money back with some friends, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. It makes sense. There was something that you said as an entrepreneur, and as you were kind of talking about it, it made me think about Cam and our partnership in business. But you said,
Yeah.
as entrepreneurs, being okay with letting things go, right? And what I don't want people to miss that, because so often we see many entrepreneurs, like you said, like, hey, this is my baby, and don't try to groom it, train it, grow it to then pass it off. And so one of the things that I admire about Cam is he doesn't get caught up in the noise, right? And when we talk about the signal versus the noise, right? I think as entrepreneurs, there's so many entrepreneurs that get caught up in the noise and not have their focus on the actual signal. And I just wanted to, again, kind of circle back with Cam. That's one of the things that daily, when I wake up and think about who am I in business with and who am I in the relationship with to grow the business, that is something that I appreciate about Cam. And doing research with you, it seems like you're very clear on your signal, right? Going from your marriage to investments to business to the podcast to media. And I think that's really, really key. And I just wanted to hone in on that, because as entrepreneurs, again, we could get so caught up on all the noise that's around us because we birthed this idea to not really focus on the big picture, which is the signal. So,
yeah, and it's important. I mean, we talked to the team. We were talking to the team yesterday, right? And I was telling them, it's like, hey, like these are the things that I want to concentrate on for our business, and these are the things that I hired all of you guys to concentrate on for this business, or that we brought you on. And like, if you're worried about being trusted, know that I wouldn't have brought you here if I didn't trust you. And I don't have an expectation that everything is going to be 100% all the time. That's ridiculous. And I was like, so like, we're the least known that we're ever going to be right now. And we heard that at a conference recently. And I said, so like, break some shit, like have some fun, you know, like don't do anything. You guys know what aligns with us and what doesn't. I'm not worried about you guys doing some craziness and like putting it out there, but like, understand that there are things that I need to focus on. And when I get pulled from that, that's just progression for us that gets stunted in that moment. And so like, just know, like, you guys have my support, and that I don't need to be involved. Don't ask me. Like, like we have our producer / creative director. And I said, stop asking me what music I want. You tell me what music we're using. Tell me what script we're recording today. And sure. At the end of the day, if I don't like it, I'll just tell you I don't like it, but I don't want to become a single point of progressive stopping.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a great point, Cam. Great point.
So on that note, in your business, right, and leading people, what are some things that you're currently communicating to your teams right now to help you guys go to your next level?
Yeah, no, that's really good. So my wife and I keep it really small. So when we think of teams, we think of us two. And so then outside of us two, I work more in the world of contractors. So I like collaborations outside of that. Part of it is probably because we had, over 100, I think we were well over 100 employees, at one point in time. I was like, man, when I move from this, I'm never going back. So sometimes it's that way. And by the way, you have your team and they're probably listening into this, and there are other people in your audience, they'll have their team, and you might even be a team member listening to this. This really isn't a knock at team members. When you are an entrepreneur, not only is it that you have a responsibility to help grow that person, and that's a great responsibility, right? Outside of just growing them. So this isn't just like, oh, all my team members are knuckleheads. You're trying to grow people, right? And then on top of that, you have the even more responsibility of maintaining their job security.
Correct.
Yes, it's important for them, but when you're a visionary, when you're the one setting the pace, when you're the person making these bottom line decisions, their security revolves around your decision making, and that is heavy.
Yeah.
So when we exited out of that first one in 2009, it's hard for me to step back into a W-2 sort of scenario because so when I think of teams, I think of, can this PR person help me? Can this, can this speaking engagement sort of thing, if I'm working in that world, or can this marketing work with me well? Which coincidentally, I mean, some of AI takes a lot of that stuff these days in my world. So it's pretty good. Yeah. Glenn, I want to step back too, because one of the things you were talking about in my story and how we identified just letting it go and growing. I want to, this is the insight my father-in-law did. And I think this really would help a lot of people in entrepreneurship. And it's something that my father-in-law was, unfortunately, in 2012, 3 days before Christmas, he had a blood clot go to his lungs, and it killed him instantly at 57 years old. And it was a terrible tragedy. And our family suffered greatly from that. And Christmas time suffered from that. My wife certainly suffered from that. However, when we were going through his desk, and I knew this, but when we were going through his desk and cleaning things out, he had calendars of books that he had where every year he would do his net worth every year, starting in like 1987. So at the end of every year, he did a net worth. And it would go down to like, I have this truck, but I have X amount I owe on it. Whatever it is, right? It's assets and liabilities. And he would get his net worth, and his net worth would start at like negative, right? And then it was 1,000, and then it was 2,000, and then it was 10,000, and then it's 15,000, and then it was 30,000, and 100,000 and 1,000,000. And you start getting into that world where you're exponentially creating. And I think that helps you understand how to let go. When you can see that, when you're starting to look at your asset, whatever you own, what's the net worth of it? Yeah. What is it? What is the real value of it? Yeah. And so I think that's something that people have gotten away from now. My wife and I don't do it even as much as he did it. Every year he had at the end of the year, what was his net worth?
Yeah. And that's something like, when we consult with a lot of our clients, I think one of the first questions I ask is, if you weren't in the room, is any money being made?
That's good. That's a good question.
Because if you can't walk away from the room and money's not being made, then you don't own a business. You're self-employed at this point. And
sure.
And that goes to your point too, because if you can step away from it, you can sell it. People don't.
That's right.
People don't buy your brand. The people don't buy you as the brand; they buy your business, and that's even something we've been thinking about recently. As we, talk about scaling, is what are the things that we provide that have to be in the room, but what are the things that we can create or we already have access to that we can then scale to where we can just sell that thing and call it a day.
It's so good, and I live on an island where we're at, and from the ocean to the county line, it's 90,000 people. On the island, probably like 40,000 on the island, but we get about 3 million that will show up, during the spring breaks through summertime, right? So it gets crazy, but it's some of the most priciest real estate on this Northwest Florida Panhandle, because we have the 30A is right in our area, and 30A is kind of like the Hamptons of the South. So you have properties that can go for 12, 15. I think something just sold for $19 million on the ocean. So you've got some great properties. So everybody down here wants to be a real estate agent. I mean, I think there's 5,000 real estate agents, on this island. And
per
so
capita.
everybody turns around per capita. You can't walk into a room not knowing a real estate agent. So I find it funny where it's like, I hope you use me. And I was like, well, which of my best friends do I need to use today? And so it really gets hard. But that is an industry that's tough, because when you talk about, you are the brand in real estate.
Yep.
Right. A really close friend of mine, in fact, he's coming this weekend, his childhood best friend. He was my VP in my company. And when we exited out, he went and started his own brokerage and got and he's doing great. And he's got a brokerage, which is helpful. So he can because that's what he was saying. As an agent, a single agent, it's me. I'm the brand.
Yep,
and I've got to build something more that somebody would want to have. And so some of it's through finding good deals that he owns office space. And, so every move he's making now is like, how do I make something valuable that people want? And it's not me. Right.
Yep.
So.
I
Yeah,
think
that's a good point. That's a really good point.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the things that, we often talk about with that, and looking at how we can be intentional with the scaling of it, and and just optimizing. One of the, speaking of kind of growth or entrepreneurship and things like that, I wanted to ask you, based off of the amount of decisions that you've made within your business, or even your life, but your businesses specifically, like how has your particular faith shaped your business decisions? And one of the reasons I asked that question is because, in business, we have things that anchor us, right? And so,
Right.
and just kind of thinking about, the things that anchor us, and, you seem like a very sharp individual, which is why I pose this question, because it's not too often that there are men in the rooms where there are other men that could feed off of to, again, sharpen their saw. And so I wanted to kind of ask that question about, how has your faith shaped some of the business decisions?
No, that's y'all, man, you guys coming hard today. I like it.
We was ready, baby. We got our iPads, son.
You was ready. Come on, Glenn. You that's a great question. And by the way, I really appreciate it. And I know you mentioned not having maybe some mentorship growing up or some good examples in that world. And I come from a broken home. I love my parents, but super chaotic inside the marriage. Growing up, there were certainly seasons of peace, but my parents divorced when I was 19 years old, and I wish they had divorced when I was like 9 years old. So you kind of grow up in that kind of weird world, and again, love them both individually. Together, they were hell, and so it was difficult in that. So I hate to hear that story. I know what that's like, and getting some mentorship is really important. But my faith has absolutely stuck out for me. My mother has prayed. In fact, if you're listening to this, your audience is listening to this, and if you have a praying mother, you need to call her after you get done listening to this and tell her how much you love her. My mother has prayed for me every day of my life, and I feel it. And that has meant the absolute world to me. And I know my wife prays for my kids every day, and they should feel it. And I pray for them most of the time. I'm not as good as mothers are good. Mothers are good, and we need mothers, and we need good mothers in the world for sure. And so, but my faith has absolutely influenced decisions. But unfortunately, the times I haven't listened to my faith, and I've done partnerships with people, I've gone into venture capital with people that I've known may not have been a faith-based person. And not all the time. Not all the time. I don't want to tell, because listen, if you're not a faith person out there today, I always tell people that, like my show that I do my own podcast on, I tell people I hope that if you're a believer that we stretch your definition of grace, and if you're an unbeliever, I hope we'll challenge your unbelief, that you'll start doubting your unbelief in it. And so I love people that are far away from, like, that's my heart. If you feel like God doesn't love you, I want to tell you he does. And so I love that part. So I want to lean into that. So I don't want to say like everybody who doesn't believe isn't good, but it is something. There's times I've been involved with people and their character has stood out, and seen that that's not character I want to, so take away faith. Let's just say character, right? Their character isn't what they needed to be. My faith said something that was off. I wasn't listening to that spirit-led voice inside of me. And I'd go into business, and usually it'd turn, as quick as I got into it, I'm trying to figure out how to get out of it. All of a sudden I'm like, all right, when can you buy me out? Or when can I buy you out, or whatever it is. So that faith has been one of those things that I think super important to listen to. When I don't, it has seemed to bite me in the tail than I do. And faith so much more than the hocus pocus of just listening to the Holy Spirit, right? It's also in how you deal with people. The fruits of the Spirit are love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, and self-control. That's the fruit of the Spirit. Fruit of Jason isn't always that, right? I will be a hard negotiator. I might handle you harshly. I might come in crazy. I might, where's my coffee or whatever, right? But if I lead with the fruits of the Spirit, that's a Jason that signals cooperation. That's a Jason that signals collaboration. That's a Jason that signals I want you to grow because when you grow, I grow, right? And so faith, when you lead with faith, I think, and again, it's not just I love Jesus and I'm gonna listen to the Holy Spirit, but like actionable love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, and self-control. Yeah.
Appreciate that. So what the hell do I know?
What do I know? That's right.
Jason, if you could, I know one of the things I recently in having conversations is the value of storytelling. And
sure.
With that and you having the podcast, what the hell do I know? Can you just kind of share a little bit about what your podcast is, why you even like what inspired you to start it, and then the storytelling piece,
yes.
why is that important?
Yeah, so what we kind of touched on a little bit from sanitation salvation. When my wife and I were getting all the real estate set up and we were going down that road, I tell people we kind of had it set up. Things were going well. I wasn't going to the courthouse steps anymore as much. And next thing you know, I was playing golf 5 days a week. And I say, Jesus broke my golf game. And I started realizing that this world wasn't all about me, right? I'm not everybody's bag of potato chips. It ain't all about me. And so I started working inside a local church and trying to help them on the business side because I thought, that's what we'll do, help them on the business side, help them get their finances straight. And they were trying to launch campuses. And so I started working in that, but then really diving into the theological classes, pastoral counseling, things like this. Before I knew it, I was ordained and I was leading different new member classes. And eventually we were planting a church in downtown Atlanta. And as we were planting this church in this really cool section town called Little Five Points, it's kind of like the Greenwich Village of New York, or maybe even like more of the eclectic spots, even in San Fran, and just everything goes, every walk of life, whatever, you can have whatever color hair you want, whatever clothes you want, that kind of thing. Piercings everywhere, tattoos everywhere, which, by the way, right down my alley. Love it. But so that's where I wanted to be. And the pastor that was supposed to plant there got pulled to the main campus, and my wife and I were doing Bible studies, and we do a Bible and a brew. So come and you'd have a cold beer and a Bible and sit down and we'd talk about Jesus. And so we did a lot of kind of cool things like that, and we just couldn't leave the area. And so I tell people I became a default pastor of a downtown Atlanta church. So I did that for about 3 years, and our venture capital stuff started taking off again, and different things were happening. And so I ended up shutting the church down, and I walked with those folks into a place that they felt comfortable. Because that's a weird thing about church, right? Is that there's a lot, like if you find a good place that you feel comfortable, like invite friends, invest in it, try to make it better. But there's a lot of churches you can walk into and not feel really good about. And so I did the church thing. And while I was doing the church thing, the main campus that I was a part of had a, youth, summer camp deal for youth, where you go to the beach and you take, a couple hundred kids to the beach. You guys probably do this there in your area, your churches do this, but they call, the youth camp, whatever. And so I was this outside, downtown pastor. And the first time I did it, I said, I'll come and I'll counsel some kids. And I had I think 5 or 6 of them, 7 of them. And they were all they were all the black kids that were in the school and that played the sports or, whatever. And but I was predominantly like a white area where this was at. And so I guess because I was an outsider, they were outsiders, we got pushed together. And I just decided that week that I'm going to lean into relationship with them. And so where a lot of counselors, when you would break, the kids would go one direction, counselors would go and have their lunch and get away and have some quiet time or whatever. I just said, everything they do, I'm doing the whole week. I don't care what it is. If we're doing the slingshot together, we're doing it. We bungee jump, we're doing it. We're getting in the ocean, we're doing it. We're in the pool, we're doing it. We're playing volleyball, we're doing it. Whatever it is, I'm going to do life with them. And I left that week changed by them. and I ended up just kind of mentoring them throughout. So mentoring those kids, and then in my own children. This podcast, when I stopped doing church, these kids, fast forward, they were coming back to me saying, when are you going to start your church again? When are you going to do something again, Jason? When are you going to do something again? And these cats all, by the way, went on to do incredible things. I got guys working for Delta. I got guys in Chick-fil-A marketing. I got one that went in the CIA. I mean, these guys these guys are legit executors, man. They just incredible operators. I couldn't be more proud of these guys. But they would call me throughout their life and still do today. They call me and ask me about college decisions or marriage decisions or whatever. And I've married one of them. I'm about to marry another one of them. One of them's had a kid now. He owns his own business. I mean, so, I've seen these kids really go, and they kept pressing me on what to do. And podcasts had just stirred in my heart for probably 3 years before I finally did it. And I just decided at this stage in my life, I want it all to be about Jesus, but not overtly. Like, I didn't want to be the faith-based podcast, but I do talk about my faith a lot in the podcast. Yeah. So the idea is, as an entrepreneur, I wanted to bring on people that I've met along the way that I can share kind of, and the title came from my children. During their teens, they got preached at all the time, right? As an entrepreneur and a recovering pastor, I would literally preach to them all the time about, hey, you need to think about this, you need to think about that. And so this duality of these young kids that I was mentoring and my own children, my kids though would get tired of it every day, and so I would say, hey, look, do it. I say, look, do it, don't do it. I mean, what the hell do I know? Right. And so that's where it came from. Gotcha. So that's kind of the full story of where it came from. And I started out thinking that I'd have a handful of people. Certainly I thought maybe my 3 would listen, and maybe some of these guys that I mentored would listen and get something out of it. It's been fun to watch it grow. It's been fun to see where it's going, and we continue to have great folks on. Love to get you guys when I know you've got some Eglin Air Force Base around there. So when you get out this way, love to get you guys in studio, and we can chop it up pre podcast, and we can post podcast it together. So that'd be a lot of fun.
As long as there's food involved, I'm there for as long.
We can make food happen. We can make food happen. If you like. Hey, if you like seafood, this is the luckiest little fishing village.
To seafood.
Snapper grouper, amberjack, all that. We got some great stuff down here.
I like it. So, my last question is, what are you most excited about building next, and what stories do you feel are still underrepresented in the spaces that you care about?
Yeah, that's a great question. Interestingly enough, I think in a couple weeks I'll have my second meeting. We're in the infant stages right now. So storytelling for me isn't just podcasting completely. I like to create video stuff. I like to really get behind the scenes, really do some good editing, lighting, all that stuff. And we've got a charity. My wife and I have a charity that's near and dear to our heart called the Emerald Coast Children's Advocacy Center. And this is a group that sets up it's a 2-county area. They take in 1,400 kids a year from our 2-county area that they see that have been abused, usually almost always sexually abused by somebody super close to them. And these are kids that have no idea what even sex means. They don't even know the word, right? Yeah. And so they have a center that houses the DA, the investigators, the medical unit, everybody else. So these kids can come in and have a disclosure. The sheriff's department can be there. They can be seen. Because a lot of times what happens, these kids, if they go in the sheriff's department, they tell their story, and then then you'd have to go to another department to tell it to the DA, then somebody else in the medical. And so before long, they're telling the story by the time they get to the 3rd or 4th time, they don't want to even the trauma that happens here, and drama and trauma, the trauma though that happens here is and when you get defiled like that at such a young age, it's so hard to come back from. Yeah. And so I'm working on a video series right now where we're taking some of these stories of these children and we're breaking them down, changing names, and I'm having community leaders and influencers sit down, and we're putting, a camera on them, one simple light, and we're going to try to, 2-3 minutes tell this story to bring about attention to this. And essentially I'm looking at titling it Not One More, because we're at some point we got to end this.
For sure.
And it's not one more. And, and the prevalency of pornography in the culture and things of that nature, look, there's the person that does this to a kid, it doesn't happen overnight. That's a slow fade.
Yeah.
And what happened to that person? Like, this is something that's going to take generationally, really focus. So being involved in projects like that are really important to me. Again, and the thing I love about them is they don't stop after they convict this person, right, and get them out of that person's life. They actually have counseling too. So the center is a full circle, has counseling to get these kids to find hope and to find peace and to find a way forward. So I love work. My wife serves on the board, and I love working with them. And so anytime I give them a shout out, I love to do it. But they are centered. That is the heart of Jesus. Blessed are the poor in heart, right? Because they will inherit the earth.
Yeah.
I believe that.
That's cool.
I believe that. So Jason, I have 2 questions.
Sure.
My first question is, Jason Becker, husband, leader, entrepreneur, father, what does your legacy look like?
Yeah, legacy. So I you froze up on my side a little bit, but it seemed like you were giving me a bunch of great titles. I mean, I stayed at a Holiday Inn last night, so maybe that made it work, right? Yeah, you're way too generous and kind. Legacy is it's tough. So I mean, it seems kind of cliche, but I really do hope that when you think about me, you think about Jesus, not anything good in me, but that you think that I pointed to him. My relationship with Jesus is so important to my life. It is just, it's hard to describe, because so many times growing up, I thought that my salvation was more about fire insurance, right? I didn't want to go to hell, and so I wanted to go to heaven. And so I said the sinner's prayer every day till I was like 33. And then I figured out grace, because I was like, I screwed up again. I don't want to go to hell. And so everything was about fire insurance. And then when I figured out that a relationship with Jesus changes all of my relationships, and it makes them all better, and that right here, right now, a relationship with Jesus means something. And so I hope that my legacy points to him. I hope that people will say, man, he really loved Jesus well. I hope that I love others really well, because I think that's what Jesus wants out of me. Our faith is a complex faith, and there's different versions of it. Right? So if you grew up inner city, or you grew up in the country, you grew up in the Midwest, or you grew up north, or you grew up south in the Bible Belt where I'm at, we all have this version of faith. And in that song of our faith, those versions sometimes clash. And it creates this world where people want to walk away from it from time to time. But I think, though, if you can lean into it, if you can get rid of all of that, and if you can tether yourself to the idea that Jesus walked this, if Jesus was who he was and did what he did and then died, and then days later, air filled his lungs, that changes everything. So if you tether yourself to that resurrection, it doesn't matter the noise. You can get past all the noise, and we can just love on each other really, really well. And that's what I hope. That's what I hope that I leave is to love people. Quite frankly, Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and love others as yourself. I've got a really good friend of mine and a mentor to me that would say, love Jesus and be nice to people. So I think if I could leave you with that, that's what I would say, is love Jesus and be nice to people.
I like Cliff Notes.
Yeah. No, I appreciate
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right, baby.
Well, Jason, here's my last question.
Yeah, man.
They're 3 words: life, love, and leadership. Choose one of those 3 words and just share whatever's on your heart.
That's so good. Well, we'll go with leadership. We've talked a lot of a lot of the other stuff. So I'm going to go with leadership, and I love how you guys have the 3 L's. I just think that's so good, and I think there's a 360 in that's super unique. The way that you're thinking about things, and I know Cam and I hit it off when we talked, but there's books out there that, and I think John Maxwell said everything rises and falls on leadership. Mm-hmm. And leadership really is super important, but if you're going to lead, you better also be a doer. Don't allow people to think anything you ask somebody to do as a leader, you ought to be prepared to do yourself or have done it yourself. Mm-hmm. That sort of leadership that leads that way, those are the people that get in the ditch and pull the cart out for you. So if you want to be a leader, be a servant leader, and you will find folks that will move mountains for you when you're a servant leader.
I appreciate that. I will say Cam never disappoints me in connecting me with what I feel are the right people in this season of my life. And so, brother, I love you. Jason, it's an absolute pleasure having you on the L3 Perspective, where we have conversations around life, love, and leadership. Cam, I'm going to toss it over to you to close us out, man.
Jason, my man, I appreciate you reaching out. Every once in a while, we get like one of those fake messages, so I'm glad yours was real. No, man. I mean, like you and I talked about, is we're both in a space where we've understood, like, hey, we got to reach out of our local environment to really make some better connections, and it couldn't have come at a better time. You know, I think us particularly, we're in a mental space where this made sense, and it sounded like it did for you as well. And so this was a perfect kickoff to us starting to kind of venture out. And no, man, this was dope. I appreciate it. I look forward to, going past this episode and honestly,
let's keep collabing. Absolutely.
Keep it moving, man. But with that being said, tell people please where to find you, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah. So again, thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute honor. This has been a great conversation. I've been on a number of podcasts, and of course I do my own, but man, this has been so much fun, and I can't wait for the next time we get to be together, because it has been absolute pleasure getting to know you guys, and I look forward to the future. So I don't want this to be the end. You've got all of my contact information personally, but for those of you listening on the interwebs, I'm going to give you those kind. So you can go, really, Instagram's probably the best one. And believe it or not, I check comments and DMs, and it really means a lot when anybody says anything, back to this old jabroni. But it's @Jason_Becker. There was another Jason Becker. He's like the longest living guy with ALS, so I have to give it to him. And
right.
he got the props first, got to the internet first for me. But but if you go there, look, support him too. But I'm @Jason_Becker, and then look, you can Google what the hell do I know. I'm probably your top 8 Googles or whatever, and you can find me really everywhere you get your pods. So Netflix is now going to be offering pods. It sounds like they just hired an executive there, and you got YouTube, and so I'm everywhere there is, and hopefully soon to be Netflix. So yeah,
I mean, I'm definitely trying to get on some Netflix, bro.
Absolutely.
Heck yeah, brother.
That's a thing. Cool. All right, y'all. Per the usual, like, love, share, subscribe. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. And we appreciate y'all, and we'll see you later.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jason Becker.
I feel like you can trust anybody.